was the most dangerous country in 2025?
I think I have to say that it's
Most damaging uh, U.S. policy in 2025. Biggest terrorist attack of 2025. As of right now, do you think it's Bondi Beach? I'm watching JD Vance
Mhm.
because I don't know if he can be trusted.
Trump is talking about cryptocurrency a lot, and that could be a huge shift in the way the world operates. And I don't even know how to begin to discuss the implications of that right now because I'm not sure I fully understand what's going on. But the technology aspect of war and all of these things needs to be watched.
Shalom, everybody. Well, the year is winding down, but current events certainly are not. So we thought we'd do something a little different. I brought one of my favorite guests here today, and we're going to do a year in review as it pertains to Bible prophecy and current events. And of course, a lot of it is going to hinge around Israel, as it usually does. So we have a lot to cover. Now, I do want to give a disclaimer, and I think my guest will probably second me on that, that we're recording this 2 weeks before the end of the year, and it's going to post probably a few days before the end of the year. And by then, it could be completely irrelevant and obsolete. But as of the day we are recording it, it is current. It is relevant to the best of our ability, to the best of our knowledge. So, to make it more relevant and more current, I bring to you my guest, John Holler.
Good to be with you with that
John,
disclaimer in mind.
yeah, with a disclaimer in mind. Friends, want to remind you to connect to Shalom and Messiah, to follow us on Telegram. You should have those QR codes showing up on the screen right now. Also, if you want to donate to our ministry, you can at shalomandmessiah.com. You can follow us on all the social media platforms. And please subscribe. We want to grow in 2026 so we can reach more people with the truth, with biblical truth, the truth that matters. So, John, I have a list. Let me pull it on my screen here. We're going to do this thing the best we can in the least amount of time. Now, I'm trying to do something in the least amount of time, and I invite John Holler. Maybe this was a mistake.
Yeah, you should maybe include on your list most ambitious time limitation of the year. So,
All right. So, the year in review, I want to start with in your mind, and we're not going to develop this, in great details because we've covered it, you and I, quite a bit over the last 12 months. But what do you think is was the most dangerous country in 2025?
I think I have to say that it's a tie. One is Iran continues to march with its proxies, trying to reconstitute its proxies um, in various areas, and these two countries are going to come up a lot in our list, I think, or their leadership. But Iran, they're trying to reconstitute their missile program. They're threatening Israel with 2,000 missiles at one time. That's 4 times what was shot back in the Israel-Iran war in July. So I think they're going to be relentless. And the concern I have, a friend of mine, Marzi, and I won't try her last name, wrote at WorldNet Daily just the other day that Iran continues to do people. Our U.S. State Department acts like we can talk to Iran and negotiate with them like they're a normal country, and you can believe anything that they say, and that's just a complete mistake. This has been a common theme throughout U.S. foreign policy for the last 50 years. You cannot trust the Iranian government, the Iranian regime. Well, ever since they came in 1979, their
Right.
whole goal is deception. and
Well, that's
infiltrations.
part of Islamic taqiyya, the fact that you can lie your way in to make your point, and it's acceptable to lie to get to your goal. So
So, and then the next country that you want to talk about, I think the other one that I would say would be tied for most dangerous is also the one that I think is most important to watch in 2026, which is the next item on your list. So we'll get a 2-for-1 here on this one, and that's Turkey. I've watched the rise of Turkey over the last pretty intently over the last 17 years. I relayed a couple times, Bill Koenig and I were sitting at a dinner table, just the two of us with Chuck Missler, had to be about 2008 or 2009, maybe 2010. And I asked Chuck, what should are you excited about Bible prophecy? He said, well, I am, with the way things are going. And this is 17 years ago, roughly. But he said, the one thing I do is I watch Turkey. And when I see Turkey start to rise to prominence, then I'm going to get really excited. So Chuck's gone to be with the Lord now, but I followed that advice pretty intently over the years. And I've studied Erdogan, and now I'm studying Erdogan and his son, and Erdogan, the people Erdogan surrounds himself by. And so I think Turkey is a very dangerous country and one to watch, the one to watch this year. There was an interview about a week ago on I-24 News. They had a little panel and they were talking about things. They were sort of doing their little wrap up of the year, recent events. And there was a lady that was on the panel. Her name is Ruth Wasserman Land. She is a former member of Knesset. She was in the Blue and White Party. That was Danny Gantz's party. But she works with the Mizgov, and I don't know if I'm saying that the right way, Mizgov Institute, one of the think tanks in Israel that I have bookmarked. And she said this, she said, I think the thing that we need to understand right now, they were talking about Syria and what's going on in Syria. She said that Syria does not exist. It's a facade for Turkey. And I think she's 100% correct on that, that what's going on in Syria is a massive Turkish operation, including the revolution that took place just a year and a couple of weeks ago when the Assad regime fell. That was a Turkey operation. Even Trump has trolled Erdogan openly at at least one of their meetings, like, hey, that was a really cool operation that you did in Syria to take over the government. And I know you'll deny it. I know you deny it, but I still think it was pretty amazing operation.
so
And
so
he just does this right in front of him. It's
right.
it's kind of hilarious.
So Iran and Turkey, and as I put that list together, and this is not an exhaustive. I mean, it's not exhaustive. I mean, we can make that list, 100 things to ask. But when I put that list together, I thought, knowing John, and I agree with you, knowing John, he's gonna go Iran and Turkey. Would you say? That's my 2 cents, or my 2 shekels, I should say. I want to add one more country as a third, maybe. I want to watch Qatar.
Yeah, well, Qatar. Yeah, I suppose you would say the the Muslim Brotherhood wing of Islam is the Qatar is the bank and Turkey is the legs. And by the way, in her little discussion on I-24 News, Ruth Wasserman Land also said Turkey is the new Iran. She just said this last week, but I've been thinking
Whoa.
this for a
Yeah, but
while.
no, not strategically, not from a weapons standpoint, not from a
Oh no, I would say I would disagree with you on that. That
really.
is my X feed, and I don't know if X curates things for me that they think I might be interested in, or things that will just really upset me or make me mad and make me so I don't need to buy coffee for because the adrenaline flows. But my feed is full, Olivier. It is full of Turkish weapons developments, special optics, drone fighters, fighter jets, missiles. and that type of thing.
I,
It's a
well,
pretty stunning development.
I wonder if our technology has the ability to listen to us when when we're not paying attention. I mean that's a tongue in cheek. Of course, they listen to us. I mean, they they know what we're looking for. So I'm sure there's somewhere in the algorithm they say that's this guy does a lot looking at this
Yeah,
topic or that topic. So yeah, I'm
and so
sure.
this lady from the Mizgov Institute,
Right.
who I would recommend you follow, she has a new article in the Jerusalem Report. You get it at the JPost website. And the title of the article is very telling. It says, as Iran weakens, Turkey emerges as a new threat to Israel in the West. And I think this is true. And I did an interview the other day. Mark Sutherland and I did an interview with Robert Spencer
Oh,
from Jihad Watch.
yeah.
And Robert, you can find that on YouTube under on the Sutherland Report YouTube channel. But Robert was also very said, yeah, Turkey is one thing you need to watch. And now you see the son of Erdogan is becoming more and more prominent too. So he may be passing the torch on because he's an old guy. He's 2 days younger than I am.
Do you think that maybe Turkey? We need to watch Turkey, but Turkey is not being seen uh, as a threat like Iran because they're not at least not now. They're not as vocal and abrasive and toxic as Iran has been openly since 1979. So people are really not paying attention, and they could become as dangerous, if not more dangerous. But they're kind of like under the radar when it comes to the rhetoric.
Sure. And by the way, outside Turkey is a Muslim Brotherhood regime. They have built massive mosques in the United States, strategically located, and elsewhere around the world, particularly in Germany and the UK. And I have some videos of Erdogan going and dedicating these mosques, and it's kind of creepy listening to him sing the Quran. But as a young man, he received awards for his recitation of the Quran. So he is a very devout Muslim, and I think very dangerous. The other thing that's kind of interesting with Russia, there's a recent article in the Eurasia Times that talks about how Turkey is becoming a problem for Russia. And part of that is because Russia has always sort of had this, the Russian Federation is made up of the stand republics, which are Islamic republics that used to be part of the Soviet Union. They're very gas rich and resource rich and human capital rich. They have a lot of people, but they're Turkmen in their ethnic identity. And so there's a very close affinity between the big Turkish country, Turkey, and these ethnic Turkmen throughout Central Asia. And so that even this Eurasia Times says that what's happening is Turkey is using different they have a strategy. For example, in Azerbaijan, they reached an agreement, and the title of the agreement was about 2001. It was two states, one nation. And so now they're taking that strategy and they're applying it to the Central Asian stand republics. So that's a significant development. The Turks are already the second largest uh, outside the United States. They are the largest army military in NATO.
Okay, so we'll be
And that
watching.
leads to a lot of interesting diplomat and treaty obligations and that type of thing with Turkey. For example, the NATO Article 5 says if a country is attacked by another country, the other NATO countries have to come and defend them. That's fine, but the tension right now between Israel and Turkey is extremely high. And what happens if Israel attacks Turkey? Does that trigger Article 5 of NATO? That all the NATO countries, including the United States, would have to come in and defend Turkey? It's a very interesting question.
That is.
And it may be why Trump's recent national security strategy indicates that I think Trump's goal would be to break up NATO, break up the EU. So,
Well,
and just in the
let's
last 24 hours or so before we record this, there's been some big articles about that. So
right.
everything is very, very fluid and very chaotic right
It
now
is. It
geopolitically.
is, and that's why we started with the disclaimer that we did. So Turkey, Iran, and I would say Qatar, but like like Qatar, you say is basically the cash cow for the whole thing. Um,
Correct.
so the most damaging. Let's go back to the other side of the pond now. Let's go back to the U.S. Most damaging uh, U.S. policy in 2025.
I would say off the top of my head, I would say it's the defense arrangements that the United States is making with Qatar. They've essentially put in place something similar to Article 5 that we just talked about, that we would defend Qatar if they're attacked. And part of that arises out of um, the attack that Israel did in September, just before we had the conference at Rockwall for Hope for Our Times. The Israel attacked Qatar, took out some of the Hamas leadership, and that
And,
led
and,
to a
and
big
really,
Muslim
John,
meeting.
John, they were not attacking Qatar as a country. They were basically surgically removing the bad actors from Hamas in Qatar. You could look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody says, "Oh, well, they were mediators, they were negotiators on behalf of Hamas." But listen, Hamas is never going to enter into any sort of agreement.
No,
They still have one hostage body. Um, so I think now when you go to Ben Gurion Airport, there's still one poster. Remember, they used to have all the posters there
I
of all
was
the
there.
hostages.
I mean, last time I was there was October. I mean, middle to the end of October, and they still have less, but they still have a bunch of posters. As you go
Right,
down to the receiving area.
right. So I think that the relationship with Qatar. By the way, I think that that attack by Israel was very significant. The Wall Street Journal and some other places have picked up that it was a very different type of attack. They didn't really violate with aircraft, fighter aircraft, Soviet, not Soviet, Saudi airspace. They did, for the first time, everybody believes in military history, they did air launched ballistic missiles. So they launched them from above the Red Sea up over Turkey, and they came down into Qatar. And it was really hard for even the United States to, with our military base there, to understand where they were coming from. I mean, it was a surprise attack. And by the way, that had a big impact on how Qatar acted. Qatar got very upset, but Qatar sort of realized, wait a minute, our leadership is at risk too if we're too much out there. So they've been very careful to kind of normalize themselves. And unfortunately, I think the United States is going along with it. So I would say that's why it's the most dangerous U.S. policy of 2025. I don't think we recognize the danger of Qatar.
And connected to that, I would say, is this Air Force base that Qatar is building in Idaho. That's a big puzzle to me.
Yeah, they're giving, whether they're building an Air Force, they're giving access to an Air Force base. I can remember I used to play a lot of golf with friends near Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, and the jets would be flying all the time. You would see F4s and F-15s or whatever the numbers are, F-16s flying all the time. But a lot of times those were, and you would sort of dig into the local Arizona newspaper and you see that those were pilots from foreign countries who were there practicing
Hmm.
on the
Hmm.
equipment
Okay.
and getting training. So that something similar to that is being given to Qatar, but Qatar is the main Muslim Brotherhood outlet, is a massive propaganda operation. They have Al Jazeera, which is probably the most propagandistic of almost any news outlet in scare quotes news outlet in the world,
Right. Right.
approaching even some of the Russian news outlets for propaganda. So, or maybe even surpassing them. So I think that policy is very dangerous.
Okay. Next is That one is probably not really hard to define. Biggest terrorist attack of 2025. As of right now, do you think it's Bondi Beach? The uh,
I think
the
it's Bondi
Chabad the
Beach.
Chabad Chabad Hanukkah celebration. 15 Jews died.
Yeah. Yeah, including a little 10-year-old girl. And that one kind of resonates with me. When I was in Israel for the Christian Media Summit, we went up to the Golan. We went to El Rome, which is a Druze village up in the Golan. I think it was Druze food, so I mean they were there cooking it and everything the way they cook food. It was actually quite good. And they had a mother come over and talk about her 11-year-old daughter and her daughter's friend, a 12-year-old boy who had been killed in the Hezbollah rocket attack at Majel Shams on the soccer
Is
field.
she the wife of the man that I interviewed when I was there in the summer, who is the first responder paramedic that found his daughter on the field? They're probably connected.
It could be. He did not speak to us. Now she spoke English, so she spoke to us. It was very moving. And then she talked about her daughter's 12-year-old friend who was listed initially as missing. And then they realized that the rocket had struck almost right next to him and blown him to pieces. And they started
Wow.
finding pieces of
Wow.
his body. And they realized, and so the father of that young boy was there also. But I think the the emotional thing was very bad. But it could be that you talked to the father of that 11-year-old girl. She was incredible, young lady, four languages fluently. As you can see, I'm having enough trouble with English as we speak. She spoke Druze, Hebrew, Turkish, and she wanted to go to law school in Germany, so she taught herself German
Wow.
at
Wow.
11 years old. But then you see this 10-year-old girl, I think her name was Matilda, who was killed in the Chabad, the attack on the Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach in Sydney. And then you see these other stories. 87-year-old guy, was shielding his wife, who was the son, I believe, or maybe himself was a Holocaust
He
survivor from
was, yeah,
Europe.
a Holocaust survivor. Yeah, yeah.
And there's not a lot of them left anymore. That's a very dwindling
That is.
population,
That
and one
is.
gets taken out in a terror attack. And then there was a couple, an older couple, that tried to stop the guys, and they were shot and killed as they were getting out of their car or near their car at the beach. I clearly, I think this is the biggest terror attack. However, there are a number of others and it's going to be increasingly difficult. We had the Manchester attack, the synagogue attack in Manchester. We had, remember, the two Israeli affiliated with the Israeli embassy, I think,
In
in
DC.
Washington D.C.
Right.
that were killed. The man and his girlfriend,
Right.
right in downtown D.C. And then we had just recently, we have, and although it's still being investigated, and as we record this, not sure exactly what's going on.
The MIT professor.
Well, that's the MIT professor, which Israel is suggesting could be Iranian retaliation. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get down the list here. But also the Brown University attack, where a Christian was killed. She was a Republican, conservative activist on the Brown University campus. And there's some suspicion of a gentleman who was associated with the Muslim Affairs organization at Brown University. His name has surfaced as possible suspect. Brown University has been spending the last couple of days scrubbing everything from their websites that relate to him. Now, Internet Archive is, you're able to get, people are accessing some of the things that he had posted, and he was clearly an Israel and Jew hater. But that's a significant thing. She was a conservative at Brown that was assassinated. And we also, I think, another big terror attack, just because of the impact it had, would have been the assassination of Charlie Kirk back in
Yeah, and that
October.
I would say for me, Uh, those two, the assassination of Charlie Kirk on U.S. soil, the symbolism behind it, the shift in what these people are going after now is something that cannot be ignored. And the one in Beach, Bondi Beach, from a Jewish perspective, Holocaust was the largest, of course. Since the Holocaust, there's been nothing bigger than October 7th, 2023, which was 1,200 people murdered by Hamas. We've talked about that, and I continue to talk about it repeatedly because people can't forget, and we need to learn from it. But that was the largest, killing, casualty of Jewish people since the Holocaust, and now since October 7th, the largest casualty of Jewish people is Bondi Beach. It's not just about the numbers, but I'm just bringing some perspective from that angle. But I would say Bondi Beach and Charlie Kirk are probably the biggest terror attack of 2025. Now, here's a hard one to define because by virtue of what it is, you cannot plan or prepare for terror attacks because that's exactly what they are, unexpected attacks that people are not prepared for, and caught off guard, and often as much damage as they can possibly do because of that. But what would you think would be the biggest terror threat for 2026 globally?
Well, I do think it's the Islamic Muslim Brotherhood type threats that we're going to face, and this goes across both uh, Jewish and Christian communities. I mean,
Correct.
I think we, and
And
I think that
conservative, and
there's
you can add conservative now because there are conservatives who are not Christians.
that's correct. That's correct. So, for example, Brown University, I don't know whether that Republican conservative activist was a Christian or not, but the interesting thing on this always is that remember when ISIS killed the 12 guys on the beach in Libya?
In the orange outfits, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people said, well, they're Coptic Christians. Well, Coptic Christians, they have bad theology and bad doctrine and everything. But the point of that is it was to the Muslim that was significant, that they were Christians.
To the
That's
Muslim, to
that's
the
all you need to
Muslim,
know
they're
about
not a
it.
Muslim. End of story.
Right.
But you're right. There are Christians like yeah. There's like different flavors of Christendom, not Christianity, but Christendom, and Coptic Christians, Maronite Christians in Lebanon, Catholics. All those things are different flavors of Christendom under the that banner. And to the Muslims who want to kill the Christians, they don't really differentiate all those.
Mm-hmm.
So, biggest terror threat, yeah, the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, we don't know how many terror cells we have in America. We certainly know that there are some, and of course, the last administration allowing so many illegals to come through the borders unchecked, unvetted, probably contributed to adding a lot of terror cells in the U.S. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Sleeping
Yeah.
cells.
I mean, there's Sarah Adams and others are have been raising the alarm for quite a while now over the past year, particularly over the past year, about potential terror attacks in the United States, like Bondi Beach.
Yeah, yeah. So now I want to switch to the next one, and I have two on that category because I don't think it's necessarily the same person. Maybe we will, but most dangerous man or woman of 2025 and most dangerous leader. They're not necessarily the same.
Well, I would think right now depending there might be a tie for most dangerous leader. That would be Ayatollah Khamenei. We don't know how long he's going to be around. And then also Erdogan. I would think that those are going to be two of the most important people to watch.
Going back to
Khamenei's
Turkey,
getting
yeah.
older. Don't know how that's going to go in Iran. I think we do not understand the geopolitical earthquake that will occur when Khamenei dies.
Do you think if here's a speculation here, do you think that if Iran is toppled, and Khamenei dies or is pulled out of office, or you won't resign, of course, but if he's killed or if he dies, and there is a counter revolution in Iran to bring back Iran to somewhat of a place of pre 1979, do you think that almost overnight Qatar would basically switch their funding and their training and everything they do towards Turkey?
Well, I think they already are. I mean, I think they're already helping out with the installation of this puppet regime, terror regime in Syria. And that's going to be a very difficult thing to watch because Al Shara seems to have a lot of U.S. support. I don't understand this. This makes no sense to me. So it'll be kind of an interesting thing to
Al
watch.
Shara is
Al
Jolani, right?
Jolani,
Al
yeah.
Jolani, who's the current leader of Syria, the ex, and I use ex loosely because we don't really know, but ex Al Qaeda operative who now basically looks very clean. He's now, he's a terrorist in an Armani suit. I don't know if it's Armani, but it's and it's interesting when I look at him. They make him look. It's almost like he looks like a modern Theodore Herzl.
It's very similar imagery that's being used. And I don't think that um, I don't think that's by design.
You think it
He's
is by
become very
design?
popular, and for example, he goes to the Doha Forum and he completely flips upside down the who is the terrorist in the Middle East. He turns it into Israel and the United States, and yet we capitulate to him on almost every
Wow.
level. And Erdogan choosing him. Erdogan is moving. In just the last year, they've moved about 800,000 Syrians back into Syria that had been living in Turkey since
Wow.
the Syrian civil war started.
Maybe they're building something.
Well, they're reconstituting themselves. Israel was brilliant attacks by Israel after the revolution in December of 2024 to take out what remained of the Syrian military assets as much as possible.
So
But
Turkey basically is going to be using Syria as a geographical launching pad against Israel at some point.
yes, they talk about it all the time, and I've mentioned on your program here that rally that took
That poster that you
that
show, yeah,
poster.
yeah.
Yep,
Remind us about that.
January 1st of 2025, the first day of the year, just a few weeks after the Syrian revolution. Erdogan's son led a rally, a pro-Palestinian rally in Istanbul, and the poster for it, it said a sun is rising, and it was a sort of a sun rising behind Istanbul with half Turkish flag and half Palestinian. But it's led by Erdogan's son. So I think there's kind of a double entendre there. But it said had three pictures: Hagia Sophia, first yesterday, Hagia Sophia, the largest church ever built in the history of Christianity. Erdogan turned that into a mosque 5 years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, was celebrating it in August on the anniversary this year. And then today, Umayyad, which is Damascus, has fallen, and tomorrow Al Aqsa. And so, people that we know in Israel, the Turks are coming there. The Turks are very active in East Jerusalem and in the old city of Jerusalem and in neighborhoods just to the north of the old city, Sheikh Jarrah, uh, in trying to reconstitute themselves there. And they come, and they've even said to people, friends of mine, that when they leave, they come back and they say, "We're coming back to take what's ours." And they still consider that to be their territory because they
Well,
occupied it at one time.
exactly. And in Islam's tradition, if you've been in a land like they've been in Vienna before, they've been in France. That means that if they were there once, even for a short period of time, it is now part of Islam, and they will come back and get it in their own ideology and their own thinking. That's exactly right. Um, so, most dangerous man, most dangerous leader. We talked about Khamenei and Erdogan. Uh, People to watch in 2026. I'll give you mine because
Sure. Yeah, I'd like
because
to hear
I'm
that.
sick and tired of you coming up with the stuff all the time. So I'll start this time. Just kidding. Um, I'm watching JD Vance
Hmm.
because I don't know if he can be trusted, and I hate to say this, but I'm really concerned about his views on Israel and his also. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, he's my senator, and so when he was running for senate, I was actually on a Fox News panel back in 2022, sitting just a few feet away from him. Um, and when they did the debate when he was running for senate, I, so look, I've watched JD. I I found him interesting when he first came, and it seems like he's been remade because I wouldn't have. He was very popular speaker at uh, Chamber of Commerce meetings and that type of thing in Columbus, talking about his book and that type of thing. And I just didn't see him as a political force. And then he ran for Senate, then he ran for vice president. Now he may be the leading candidate right now for the Republican nomination, although a recent poll indicates that he's actually lost in the poll to AOC in the presidential poll, which is kind of frightening. But his problem is the problem on the Republican Party. So I'll give you the best case scenario for why JD Vance does why he does what he does, what he says, what he says. And the American right wing has a very bad Jew hating problem. It's been infiltrated on the right. You see it with people like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I would say even Steve Bannon
Steve
and people at
Bannon,
the War Room, and also and then Tucker Carlson, and they and so
Megan Kelly.
Megan Kelly, right? She's been the best you could say is she's been incredibly weak on this, and but so what JD Vance is trying to do, I was trying to explain this to someone yesterday, is maybe he doesn't like Israel, maybe he hates Israel, but the other part that he may be trying to do is he's a politician. So he's trying to keep the Republican coalition base together. So he kind of throws them a bone every now and then. Like, Israel doesn't control me. I'm not an APAC guy and that type of thing. But he can kind of act a little bit like he's in favor of Israel, but he has to tell people that he's really not or he's concerned about it. And there was a very telling answer he gave at one of the Turning Point USA events. He was asked a question. This was clearly a supporter of Nick Fuentes who asked the question about, well, Israel controls everything. And JD Vance's answer was
Not
very
this,
bad.
not
He
this
says,
administration, or not
it
this
does not
president.
control this administration, with the implication being they've controlled all the other
Right,
administrations.
right.
And so what he was trying to do is carve out an exception for the Trump administration to satisfy these Nick Fuentes, Groyper types that believe me, I believe they've really infiltrated Turning Point USA. And I don't understand Turning Point USA at this point that they would have Megan Kelly, Tucker
Well,
Carlson, and
they have an event. I mean, as of recording this show, I think it's starting this weekend. They have an event in Phoenix, Arizona, I believe.
Amfest. Yeah,
And
it's their big event of the year.
I look at the list of the speakers, and I threw my arms in the air. I'm going like, why? I mean, Tucker Carlson, Megan Kelly, JD Vance, the list goes on,
I'm
and
sure Steve Bannon's on that
yeah, he
list,
is.
and
Steve
Jack
Bannon is on
Posobiec, and
there. Several, government officials as well, and um, but again, this is not. There is in a disclaimer here. There is a section of Turning Point USA that is a uh, Christian branch of it, so to speak. But Turning Point USA as a whole is not a Christian organization by name, by definition. They're not. So they don't claim to be Christian. They claim to be conservative. have Judeo-Christian values, but they're not Christian evangelical. There is a section of that, but I'm not sure that what is behind the conference starting this weekend is claiming to be Christian in belief system.
Yeah, I would also say too.
I'm not finding an excuse for them because I still think that it
No,
should.
no, and I think the next one in the list is people. Like we were talking about people to watch. I think the one thing to watch is evangelical leaders people who claim the evangelical label, but then are moving increasingly against Israel. And it's becoming increasingly difficult. My friend Dexter Van Zyl had an article on his Substack just yesterday. I haven't had a chance to read it completely yet, but Dexter is familiar with the United Church of Christ, which is a mainstream Protestant denomination that's very anti-Israel.
Right.
But now what we see is what they've said all these years is sort of infiltrated
Yeah.
itself into more what we would consider mainstream conservative evangelicalism, much like the emerging church that we used to talk about that all the time. And we don't talk about it as much now because it's actually been adopted.
They've emerged.
It's not the emerging church; it's now the merged church,
Right.
and that's very concerning. And so we're seeing the same thing with evangelicalism, adopting this anti-Israel, anti-Jew narrative. And I mean, it's vicious beyond belief.
Yes.
And you hear what they say about how Christians are treated so badly in Israel, but you and I go there and I don't see this. I mean, I think there are people that don't like Christianity, but I'm sure there are some incidents,
There
okay?
are people who don't like Christians in Texas, where I live, which is very conservative. They're everywhere.
That's true. And you can see that around where I live in Ohio. So I think that, but because it involves Jewish, here's an example, Olivia. I saw a lady the other day. She said, we send money to Israel so they can bomb and commit genocide. First of all, it's not a genocide by any definition, and they were calling it a genocide before Israel even went in
Correct.
to defend itself and to take
Correct.
care of the problem. But she says, and because we send that money to Israel, we can't have free healthcare here in the United States. These people are supremely ignorant. They don't know the numbers involved. They sound big, but they're relatively small. I did a thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying, well, we have this national debt of $37 trillion because we give money to Israel. Well, it hasn't been trillions of dollars. And even if you say it was $100 billion over the last couple of years, compared to the national debt, it's not even like a thousandth of 1% of the national debt, if I've done the numbers correctly.
I know.
So, but everything gets completely distorted.
Inflated. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, I know we're kind of right. The other people to watch are the tech bros. That's going to be a big development. I've been doing roundtables on that with
On
Patrick Wood
you
and
mean with
others.
AI?
AI, I don't know if AI is it. I think the big thing is tech intrusion into our lives and a control grid being set up. And so AI may be part of that, but it may be a ruse to divert our attention away from what's really going on. And the United States is really leading this, with, in fact, Trump. I don't even, just since we started talking about doing this program, Trump is talking about cryptocurrency a lot. And that could be a huge shift in the way the world operates. And I don't even know how to begin to discuss the implications of that right now because I'm not sure I fully understand what's going on. But the technology aspect of war and all of these things needs to be watched.
Do you realize, John, that if I leave that statement you just made on this program, it's going to be pulled up by a lot of people and used against you? John Holler just admitted, I'm not sure I fully understand what's going on, and they're going to apply this to anything you say.
Well, that's true. Okay, so I do understand a lot what's going on. I'm just not sure I understand the implications of a reset with cryptocurrency.
Right. No,
I don't know how that's going to play out exactly.
right. No, I agree with you. That's something to be watching. All right, here, let's have a little, not a little fun, but that one I have three contestants, and I don't know who's going to win it. I could have more, but I have three. Biggest anti-Semite of 2025. My three contestants are, of course, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens. And Fuentes, um, he doesn't worry me as much as the other two because the other two, and really, to be honest with you, I think Candace Owens, even though she has a large following, she is starting to really irritate a lot of people and they're distancing themselves from her program. I think for me, the biggest mystery of why we continue to support this guy, not me certainly, is what's happening with Tucker Carlson. I've watched a lot of his programs since, for the last year and a half. Started with Munther Isaac and then the guy, I forgot his name, the fake historian who denied the Holocaust.
Yeah, that guy, I can't remember.
Yeah,
Scott is something like that.
something. Yeah, and then
Daryl Scott or something.
the nun, Stephanopoulos' sister, and
Actually,
then
she was outside Christ Church when I was there because they caught her on the video
no,
camera while
and
I was there.
who do you think is the biggest anti-Semite today? Public figure.
I think it's the way he's going about it. Tucker Carlson is probably the most clever and most dangerous. Uh, Candace and Nick Fuentes, they kind of come out of that uh, trying to revive old school Catholicism that was very anti-Jewish.
Right.
They don't like Vatican II. Tucker is sort of, I think the Stephen Ben Yashai, Steve the tour guide, we did a little program together, and he said that he's kind of a Gnostic. I have secret knowledge. I've been able to figure all of this out. But I also want to remember is Tucker's wrong. Well, he's wrong on a lot of things. He's clearly in bed with the Qatari regime on their propaganda against Israel. But if you remember back in June, when the United States helped Israel bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities and set that program back a little bit, I don't think it destroyed it. I think it damaged it. But Tucker was going, if we do this, there will be a massive war with Iran. There will be World War III with Iran. And that didn't come true. So he doesn't know what he's talking about a lot of the times. And this fake thing like, well, I'm just asking questions. It's he has an agenda. You can tell it by the way he asks his questions
Yeah.
and who he interviews, who he's friendly to and who he's not friendly to.
Right. And it's interesting how he gets the answers from those who are enemies of Israel, clearly, and he does not challenge. He will agree with what they say or act surprised and then agree with them, going like, oh, I did not know that. This is good, this is interesting, I can't believe this. But then you switch to an interview that you did with Ted Cruz where he was and unfortunately Ted Cruz did not handle himself very well. I was embarrassed for Christians when he could not even locate the verse about blessing Israel and cursing Israel, because it's a no brainer for evangelicals who love Israel. It should be Genesis 12:3. But the way that Carlson was handling himself and the way he was handling Ted Cruz and grilling him to embarrass him in front of everybody, it was a different kind of interview. Did you get that?
Yeah, I mean, it's it should be so patently obvious what he's doing, but I get emails. I got an email last night from someone. I have Christian friends, uh, and they don't like Israel anymore, and they love Tucker Carlson. and they don't see any anti-Semitism or Jew hatred coming out of Tucker Carlson.
It's
But by
well,
the way,
it's
Diana West, who's been a little bit quiet for the last couple of years, a great analyst, she has an article up on her Substack
yeah,
about how Tucker Carlson is the modern Pat Buchanan. Remember how Pat Buchanan was in the conservative movement, but he was always blaming Jews for everything.
right.
And that's the woke right now. That's the people that I see on War Room all the time talking about this. They are Pat Buchanan. And there's a video that I've played, I'm sure you've seen it, of Tucker Carlson from the late 1990s. It's on C-SPAN. He's sitting there with his little bow tie on, and he's talking about how dangerous and anti-Semitic Pat Buchanan is. And we should oppose that. And now he's become that person.
He's become the next one. Interesting. Yeah. So that Tucker Carlson is probably he wins the prize on that one. Biggest hero of 2025. Are we gonna go for the man who grabbed the gun from the father who killed the Jews on Bondi Beach? Who, by the way, that man has been described as a Muslim, but I think that is a misnomer. I think he's a Maronite Christian, which means he has Arab descent, but he's not a Muslim. He's they come from Lebanon, so we got to be careful, not sending
Yeah,
the wrong narrative.
I've been researching that, and I haven't been able to come to a conclusion. What we can agree on is that what he did was heroic
Yes,
and at great cost himself. And I mean, I believe, at least as we record this, there's still a possibility that he could lose his arm from the wounds that he got. And it was easy to criticize him for not shooting that gun that he picked up from the guy, but the gun could have been out of the ammunition. It could have been jammed. We don't
right,
know the situation. And
right.
it's always easy to analyze, slow down the video and analyze what people should have done when you're not literally under the gun.
That's
So
right.
clearly he was a hero in what he did. I also think there are people that I think are heroes in the sense that they're standing for the truth of scripture and prophecy and the importance of Israel in that whole end time plan of God. They believe things like Ezekiel 36, Ezekiel 37, and Romans 11, Romans 9, 10, and 11 that are, I think, very clear as to what they say. And it's hard to just pick out just one person that does that. A lot of them are our friends, and we appreciate them taking that stand. And it's going to become increasingly difficult. My gut reaction on October 7th, as I watched things unfold, I think I said on October the 8th, I'd have to go back and look at my prophecy update that day, but I already saw rising anti-Semitism. Before
Yeah,
Israel had done anything to respond, they were responsible for the attack. And I said it would be the most divisive issue in the evangelical church until Jesus returned. And I think that's probably going to be the case,
you
and
know,
it's going to
I,
become increasingly difficult.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm reminded of this conversation I had with our tour guide about 2 weeks ago on a different topic, but we were talking about the events in Israel, what's going on. His son is serving in the IDF, so I was trying to figure out a way to help him and with our ministry, and then he just paused, and we're doing video call, and he looked at me, and this look in his eyes is, Olivier, as a Jew, and I think I mentioned that to you before. As a Jew, I understand October 7th. I have overcome. It says what he said. As a Jew, I have overcome October 7th, but I cannot overcome October 8th. And that really is it. That at the core, that's exactly what we need to remember. The Jewish people in Israel and globally understand that we are, like it's hunting season again. They're going after us. They're coming back for us, like I say. Like my mother said 10 years ago, she survived the Holocaust and the attack in Paris at the kosher supermarket. She was asking me, are they coming back for us? She was 87 at the time. It was very, very sobering. And I said, no, Mom, they're not. Well, 10 years forward, 2025, yes, they are coming back for us. And there's no doubt in my mind. And so this man, this Jewish guide of ours, you know, basically just poured out his heart. He said, I understand what's happening because there is an expectation as a Jew, as an Israeli, on top of that, that we are going to be always going to be at risk of the next terrorist attack. Not that bad of an attack like it was on October 7th, but the surprise, which to me is still something that I just cannot reconcile with my for people of goodwill, is what happened on October 8th and forward. This hatred, this Pandora's box of hatred that basically has been opened, and it is just, it's going all over, and it's reaching levels of intensity and spread, and it's exponential, and I don't see it stopping. So it's until the return, of course, until Jesus comes back. So that's a big concern for me. Should be for, like you said, the few of us who teach Bible prophecy, like Tom Hughes and Brendan Holthouse and Bill Koenig and all those guys. And there's a long list. Well, actually, it's not that long of a list. Actually, the list is getting shorter because we're losing friends regularly. But this is very concerning. So as we wrap this up, I've mentioned that before, but I think it's good to mention it again. I believe that prophecy is being fulfilled in 2025, at least in two ways. You mentioned Ezekiel 36:37. I think that's definitely something that has been an ongoing fulfillment of prophecy of the return of the Jews to the land of Eretz Israel in unbelief. And you and I were in Israel recently. I was there 4 times since the war, but you and I were in Israel recently. You've noticed, and I've noticed, building everywhere. There's like cranes and building everywhere. There is a sense of anticipated big wave of aliyah, of return to the land, that is happening or is going to happen very soon. And that wouldn't be surprising if maybe in 2026 we see a big surge of aliyah like we haven't seen in several decades. That's my take on this. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's what's coming, and I think we're seeing this unfold. I mean, Israel's developing, and it's not certainly not a perfect country. It'll be
No.
interesting to watch the political developments there. I believe there will be elections this year in 2026 in Israel, and that will be very interesting. The polling is, as you might expect, all over the place right now. Parties may meet the threshold, so they get 4 Knesset members. Then the next poll, they're completely out, and it's going to be. You think our the nice thing about the Israeli system of politics is that it makes the American system seem very calm and mundane
Yeah, that's
by
right.
comparison. But so that'll be a very big deal this year. But I just think we're going to see this unfold. We understand that we live, and I want to give the proper person credit. It might have been Todd Hampson on Tom Hughes' program a couple of weeks ago, made an interesting observation, is that we live in this sort of, and now this is my rephrasing of what he said, we live in this paradox as we watch Bible prophecy unfold, and there's things in it that we don't like, and there's things in it that we can't stop, yet at the same time we have an obligation to occupy till he comes and to be salt and light. And so it's sort of it's like an inner conflict that we have to wrestle with. So I think the advice is just do the right thing, and the world situation will, at least in our view of Bible prophecy, is we're not going to affect it anyway. We're
No.
not going to bring about the kingdom. That's all going to take place in its time as God has planned. In the meantime, we need to do the right thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. I see another prophecy being fulfilled. I've mentioned that several times, but people need to hear it. I really want it to kind of gel in people's mind. Is the prophecy of Zechariah 12:3, where the whole world eventually will turn against Israel. Friends, we are seeing this picking up speed again, it's exponential. It's every day. It's several times a day. It's all over the globe. It doesn't matter what kind of government. It doesn't matter what kind of culture. It doesn't matter what kind of environment. It doesn't matter the reason. It doesn't matter the event. They're going after the Jews. And it's going to continue to pick up speed. And we will speak the truth as long as the Lord allows us to do so. Uh, my final advice for all of you watching today is that 2025 was definitely an interesting year. 2026 promises to be even more interesting, more eventful, I think. We'll have to see, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be a dull year by any way, any stretch of the imagination. But the most important thing you can do, and I always like when I have John on my program, I always like to say this. John and we don't take pride in this, but it's just a reality that is part of our very unique friendship that has formed over the years. John and I don't see eye to eye on end times events. We don't have the same view of the rapture, and
The timing.
the timing, yes, the timing of the rapture. Thank you for correcting me on that. And but it's okay because we both understand this, that the important part is not so much to agree or disagree on when we're going to be taken to be reunited with the Lord, but the fact that we're going to be reunited with the Lord. But to be reunited, you have to be part of His family. You have to be part of the family of God, and that there is only one way. And John and I agree 100% on that. Is it only? It's only through the blood of Yeshua. We're about to celebrate the birth of Yeshua. This is a season where we celebrate His birth. There wouldn't be His atonement through His death if there was not the birth. So the birth is a beautiful thing, but we have to understand He was born to die for your sins, for my sins, for John's sins. And once you accept that as a free gift, you become part of God's family. And regardless of the timing of the rapture, you will not be left without God. You will be reunited with God. You will be in all eternity with God. You will be saved for all eternity, and you will not be. Basically, let me be bold. There's only two places in God's presence or in the lake of fire and brimstone, which is not a figure of speech or a symbol. It is a literal place. You do not want to go there. You want to be in God's family. So, John, any final words? Any advice for 2026?
No, I was going to suggest maybe sometime we should do a program like best barbecue of the year and best chocolate malt of the year, but we will never do a program on best falafel of the year because I'm not sure that's possible to
Well,
discuss. But but anyway, look, it's an interesting time to be alive. All kidding aside,
yes,
um, I do think that whenever we get together, we talk about the acceleration and convergence of events, and I think that
right.
that's only going to get more intense in 2026.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, John, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
This is this is the last program of 2025. I have appreciated you coming so many times this year on the podcast. We'll continue doing that next year, if the Lord tarries. And like you said, I like what you said. We have to occupy. And the best way to occupy as believers is to make sure we find opportunities to share the gospel and show the love of Messiah to those who do not know Him yet. So, friends, thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to all the different social media. Also, I forgot to mention in the beginning that my new book is out now. It came on October 7th. We'll show you a picture on the screen. It's Antisemitism in the End Times. You can get it in bookstores or anywhere books are sold, including Amazon. And this is an eye opener to a lot of people. So I encourage you to get a copy of it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this ministry. Thank you for a great year of support. We continue to teach the truth and bless Israel the best way we can. John, I will see you next year. Maybe
Likewise, thanks.
maybe next year in Jerusalem, as they say.
That's right.
All right. Thank
Let's
you,
do it.
John. Be
Thanks.
blessed.